Yeah, before we start, just want to thank all of our fans who traveled to East Lansing this past week. They were great. You could feel their presence in the stadium. And as we get headed into Big Ten season, I just want to, remind all our fans that we do have the best fans in the land. And, we are the standard for excellence. And, we always handle ourselves in first class. And so excited to see everybody out here on Saturday. And secondly, just want to congratulate Chris Ward, who's going into the College Football Hall of Fame. I'm going to be celebrating him this weekend, and also 3 former Buckeyes that are going into the Ohio State Athletics Hall of Fame: Jeff Logan, Braxton Miller, and Matt Wilhelm. So excited to celebrate their accomplishments here this weekend as we head into Iowa.
Thank you very much, Coach. Let's open up the press conference over here to the right, Don Berry, WVNS.
All right, Coach, take a look at Iowa. How much does the competition level go up as you look at them, and how big of a challenge is it?
Yeah, huge challenge. This is a challenge for all of us. This is a very good team. They play physical. You guys know who they are. They have not changed their identity in a long time, and they have very, very good coaches and physical players, a veteran team. So, we're going to get challenged in a lot of areas, and this is challenging our whole building this week. We got to have a great week of practice. They're going to be coming hard. They're physical. They're well coached. They're fundamental, and they have an identity. So, we know what a challenge this is going to be this week, and so it starts right here. Well, actually started right after our practice on Sunday, and get in here, watch the film, and then it's going to start here on the practice field. We got to have a great practice today.
Far right, Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Right, on Saturday, Jordan Hancock was talking post-game about Caleb Down and said he's like a coach on the field. Obviously, a guy who's a sophomore in college who's played 4 games here. There was a middle part of the game where he was on the sideline. Basically, I could see him coaching up Jordan on the field. How different is it to have a guy of that football IQ and that ability combined, and what has he meant to the defense, even though he hasn't had what a lot of people consider splash plays until this last week?
Well, I think for the first couple of games, the game got a little bit lopsided later on, so you just don't, you don't see them playing a full game. But that's here now, and Caleb made some huge plays in that, especially in that middle 8 there. And his first off, his preparation is remarkable, and just the amount of work he puts in. And his ability to play really fast certainly is part of his makeup. But when you put preparation in and you know what you're looking at and you can react faster because you put that much preparation in, that's a sign of a veteran player. He plays that way. He's got great energy. He's a great teammate. He does communicate well. But even late in the game, he's encouraging the younger guys. He knows what it means to pull along other guys, and he's shown that. There's also a certain level of calmness back there. When he's back there with Lathan. These guys have played a lot of football. They've seen it. There's no panic, but they're also identifying the things that they got to get fixed.
To hear a reminder for the rest of the coaching staff, like what's important in recruiting now and how the game has changed.
Yeah, it certainly has changed, and you never can quite predict what it's going to look like for everybody's journey. But he's somebody that's certainly, since he's even been here in a short period of time, made a huge impact on us.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, how did you assess the 2 right guards that you were playing on Saturday? And do you think that you guys will come to a conclusion on which one of those 2 could be the permanent guy there?
I don't think we're there yet. We'll kind of see how the practice goes. There was nothing on the film that set one ahead or behind. They both graded out similarly. So when that happens, we feel like, if we can parse out the reps, then that helps both of them play better and stronger in the game. So we'll see how the preparation goes this week and then decide as we get closer to the game.
Cameron T. Robinson, the Athletic.
Ryan, when you look at Iowa, obviously really good defenses,
Right.
But especially against the run, you look at them up front, what stands out about the way they contain people when they're in that side of the field?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, what year you watch them. It's, the same guys inside. They're just, they play with great technique. They're well coached. They understand how they fit into the defense. Their pad level's low. Their hands are low. They play physical. Like you said, they run to the football. Coach Parker does a great job in making sure they understand how they're being attacked. And, you just look year after year, it's similar in terms of the statistics and the production, and they know what they're recruiting there, and they do a great job. So it's a real challenge for our offense this week, and we got to have a great week of practice.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Ryan, do you think Sonny Styles is settling at linebacker quite at the rate that you thought he would at this point in the season? I know it's still early. He's still early.
Yeah, I think he's made that transition pretty rapidly. That's a big move to go from safety to linebacker, and you're seeing a lot of great things there. But anytime you're doing some things for the first time, you're learning as well. But he's learning fast.
And real quick, the last offensive play of the game where you weren't too happy with Julian. Was he not supposed to throw the ball there? I guess what happened in that whole thing.
If he was going to throw it there, he better complete it. I can tell you that. But that's those are the type of things that you can't replicate, even though it's late in the game and the score is what it is. Like, we got to learn. We got to push through those things. You got to put that back of your head and learn from those things. So we were excited to get him that rep and learn from that rep, which I know he will.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North, and the podcast.
Ryan, it seems like every week you guys have kind of layered some kind of change up onto your run game. How do those conversations go with you and Chip and Justin to decide what you're going to pull out a certain week and maybe what you're going to maybe keep on the shelf or something down the road?
Yeah, it's constant. It's going on right now. We're constantly going back and forth and trying to figure out how do you put your players in position to be successful. How do you give them enough that they're doing what they know well, what our fastball is, but also having some change ups along the way. And when you're playing against a defense like this, you better line up and play and know what you're doing. So it's that back and forth of trying to figure those things out, and I think that's part of the art of putting a game plan together. But ultimately, it comes down to what our players know and what they can execute, and that's what it comes down to. And a couple of those plays were executed well. But, again, bigger challenge, really stout defense this week. So it's going to come down to our guys, winning their one-on-one battles and executing them at a high level.
When you guys run a pretty cool play against Marshall where I think you pulled 3 guys, and then I think you ran the same play against Michigan State, but you used a Mecca instead of a second tight end. I'm assuming it's Chip that throws that idea up, or you just like, yeah, let's try a Mecca there. Or is any part of you like, I don't want to have a Mecca block a Mike linebacker in the hole?
It sounds like you're sitting in our meetings. Those are all part of the conversation, and there's pluses and minuses to all. But like for a Mecca to do that, make that block on a linebacker, and then come back and pin, the nickel the way he did, and then he was more excited about that. I don't know if you saw him on the field. He was fired up after that play when Jeremiah's scoring. So he's 20 feet away blocking a nickel. Jeremiah scoring a touchdown, and he's over here like just celebrating. I mean, to me, that's winning football, and again, he had some really big plays again in this game, but he does all the dirty work, and that's a sign of a really good player and a really good football team is when guys are willing to do the dirty work, and that's an example of not a lot of wide receivers are going to go in there and stick their nose in there like that. The play wasn't necessarily designed for him to block a linebacker, but you got to clean the thing up on the way up, and that's what he did.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, the last 2 weeks you guys have allowed the opposing offense to move in the first half, score some points. Second half adjustments seem to be working. How do you balance knowing what you want to know going in and getting those stops in the first half versus, hey, we're doing a good job of figuring it out on the fly and shutting things down?
Yeah, and also, like you said, not giving up, X plays and long drives for touchdowns. I mean, that's part of it too, as we go into it. I think going into this game, I think in our numbers were like 11-3 or 10-3 in terms of X plays, offense to defense. And when you're doing that, you're going to win a lot of games. I think the turnover battle was 3-1 in the last game. You're going to win a lot of games if you do that. So we have to, focus on some of those things, but also, like you said, we want to get stops. We want to, force 3 and outs. So there's a back and forth on that, and constantly talked about. And we're going to deal with the same thing this week. These guys are made improvements in a lot of areas on offense, and I think they're playing really well. So again, another challenge for our defense here is these guys come in.
Has the iPad helped that, being able to adjust maybe quicker than a year ago when you have to get to the locker room and talk about a lot of stuff?
It's the same for both sides. So I'm with you, but I think the communication has been good. But they also have the video too, so they're watching film, so they're making adjustments along the way. But yes, I do think for the communication part of it, it has made that a little bit more streamlined.
Tony Gerben, Buckeye Huddle.
Brent, I assume you're familiar with PFF.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that being like the front-facing grade for how college football players play in a game?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to, who's actually doing the grading, and if it's accurate, great. But I think it's hard sometimes for them to know exactly what their job responsibility was. That being said, I think generally it's in the ballpark. but I don't know, if, somebody who doesn't really know what's expected on a certain play is going to give the same grade as a position coach who knows exactly what's going on. So that's kind of my take on it.
Do you tell your players, don't worry about that? You get the real grades from the coaches? Like, do you have
It never really comes up, quite honestly. Yeah. I mean, it's not something that our guys have quite talked about all that much.
Dan Hope, Lebanon Warriors.
Ryan, you guys switched kickoff returners again for the second game in a row from Mecca. Kind of what went into that decision, and do you expect Mecca to continue in that role going forward?
We going into that game, we felt like there was, a chance of, them trying to steal a possession, and Brandon was really good up front, and Mecca, fielding the kicks back there. We just felt like that was the right personnel. We're going to try to make the best decisions on a weekly basis based on the personnel of our guys and what we're going up against. And, based on, the way he was kicking the ball anyways, a lot of them were out of the end zone. So, we try to figure all those things in. And the good news is we do have some different options to go with, and, different scheme this week. So, we'll move some more pieces around this week.
Stefan Kreisnik, Cleveland.com.
We saw Wednesday, right before we spoke to you, Aaron Nolan get his flag stripe and kind of the reaction that came with that. Why do you think that tradition and those kind of moments are celebrated so much by the players, even the veteran guys that have had it removed for years now?
Yeah, not to get too much into in particular air, but I think when you see somebody who you say like earn their stripes, and they've taken their black stripe off when they really earned it, I think there's a sense of accomplishment there, and I think that was the right time for Air. He's done a really good job. These past couple of weeks of focusing on getting better. That's his focus right now, just getting better. And, everybody has different journeys along the way, and he's got a team that, really cares about him, and he's improving every day. And I think, to be recognized like that, to see, okay, I've come from, a certain place, I'm not near where I need to be, but I've earned the respect of my coaches and my teammates. And that's a huge accomplishment. And, it was good to see him get a stripe off.
Josh was talking about it a few weeks ago. He said his first year for Josh Fryer, all he thought about was getting his black stripe removed. I guess how much is that something, an initiative for maybe the younger guys who don't see the field as much to have something, to play for and practice and whatnot?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. What are you working towards every day when you walk in the building? And it's easy when maybe you're not seeing the field very much to get caught into a rhythm of, just kind of going through the motions. But, these days can be long, but the weeks go real fast. And before you know it, the season will be over, and you got to have something to show for it. You got to see some improvement along the way, whoever it might be. And so you got to maximize every day. And sometimes as a young player, that's not always easy, but we try to find different ways, after Sunday practice, we keep some of the guys out for some extra work who maybe didn't get work during the game. Today, an inside drill, the threes will get their reps in front of everybody, so, but the scout team looks are very, very important as well. And they're going to be even more and more important as we start getting closer, to the end of the season. So, we got to see improvement, but good to see, those guys continuing to get better and having a great attitude when they walk in the building.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, the situations, these are all different, but you went for it on fourth down a handful of times. It was at the 3-yard line, and then your own territory, then the fourth 5 leads touchdown on Mega. But what's your level? What's the thought process in those situations? What's the level of comfort in going for it on those plays?
Some of it has to do with, where we are on the field. In particular, I'd say that 4th and 5 play. If we were maybe a little bit further in and had a little bit more of a high percentage field goal, maybe we would have taken the field goal at that point, but felt like we were right out of that range. And so, there was a timeout, and we came over and decided that, we had a good play. That's a big part of it as well. You got to feel like you have a good play that you're going to go to. The 4th and 3 down in the 3-yard line, I felt like at that moment, 7 points is way more important. And even if we didn't get in, the ball's on the 3-yard line, and if we can get a stop there, then we get the ball back at midfield. So, every game, based on the score, based on how things are going, you got to take those things into consideration. We do have, analytics that in that moment, I'm getting information on what the chart says and what the statistics say. But, sometimes you got to just, trust your gut, trust your team based on a lot of different scenarios.
On paper, you guys are going for it a little more this year than on fourth down last year, that having the analytics part of it? Is it having a super senior quarterback and Will just?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the situations and being aggressive right now and trying to get as many plays as we possibly can in these games. But we'll look in each week. We'll try to do what's best to win the game. And that's the most important thing.
Far left, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Ryan, progression of Jeremiah in this offense. What are you seeing from defenses realizing this guy is a guy we have to stop? And is there an evolution of they're doing more and more things?
I think that's the tricky part right now is, how much can you do because of all the other things that are going on? And that's the idea of putting stress on defense. But there's no question that people will know where number 4 is when he's on the field.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you said you hold your quarterbacks to an especially high standard. It seems like Will Howard's done everything right. A few mistakes here and there in decisions. To the somewhat untrained eye, it looks like sometimes he locks on to receivers. Is that something that needs to be developed? Do you guys see that? Is that off the mark? And how do you develop that?
I don't know. I haven't recognized that just as something that continues to show up. But I think certainly on the interception, he could have moved on. There's no question about that. Yeah. So, that's trust in your drop, trust in your eyes, and, making sure your eyes are in the right spot. But there's times where he's found himself back on 3 and 4, and it may not seem like it because his eyes quickly went back to 3-4. And that's a big part of working progressions is, okay, I have 1 and 2 over here, but what are my eyes telling me? If my movement key or whatever my key is for that play tells me I'm working front side, great. If all of a sudden I see something over here that tells me I'm backside, then I'm backside. So the idea of moving on from like 1, 2, 3, 4 really comes down to your eyes. And then based on what the play is, I mean, sometimes it's pick a side. So, I'm working over here versus certain coverage, man or zone, 2 high, 1 high, or I'm working over here. And so, based on, what the play asks us to do, sometimes it's throw the ball to him. That happens sometimes. So, there's a lot that goes with it. But to answer the short answer is, when we're talking about moving through progressions, it really comes down to your eyes and where you're looking. And that can really get you through the progressions a lot faster.
Unrelated, is this schedule about as good as you could have dreamed up in terms of progression, or would you rather see a power team early? I mean, you've kind of built through these 3 teams, and you have Michigan State, then you have Iowa before Oregon. I mean, it seems pretty set up for you.
I think after the season, you probably will be able to sit back and look at it and evaluate it a little bit more. We're like so in it right now. I think it's hard to tell. But I think it's a legitimate question because I think it is a very different feel than maybe the last couple of years. But it's not changing how we approach it. It's just, like you said, a little bit of a different feel. So probably too early to tell. We'll focus on this game and try to win this game and continue to do that, and then kind of come up for air at the end of the season and figure out where we're at. Yeah.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Ryan, it looks like Will Howard's up about 15% in those intermediate throws from last year. Is this what you kind of expected and envisioned with his development in terms of accuracy, and how much does that factor in for that 4th and 5 decision to go for it, comfort level?
Yeah, it's a big. I mean, both of those 4th down throws were both really well thrown against man coverage. Just where only G could catch it and really Mecca could catch it. I mean, those were contested throws that you want to give him those opportunities. I'm sure he's done it before, but it's for us to see him do it here for us is different as well. So. Those are big. And then the protection was huge. The guys up front, I thought did a nice job in protection. Travion was big in protection. So those are all, challenging plays where you got to stand in the pocket and you got to hang in there and make those throws. So, good to see him make those and build some confidence on that.
Deep right, Andy from WBNS.
Ryan, when you talk about Travion and blocking, you talk about, Mecca making a big play. How much have you seen those plays grow with your team? And how much do those build a championship team? Not necessarily the one-hand catches, not the great throws, but the behind the scenes.
That's it. It's the effort. It's the hard work. It's the dirty work. It's all that stuff. And that's sign of a good team and a team that's playing hard and playing physical. And, Seth McLaughlin finishing guy into the end zone. And that's the stuff that we constantly watch with our guys on Sundays, the effort plays. And we're going to need them this Saturday. but that's it. And that's being unselfish. Why are you playing so hard for your teammates? And we got to keep building on that. I mean, that's got to be a huge part of our identity this season. Has been so far. I mean, it's on the film, but we got to keep getting better at it. We need everybody to do it.
It's actually Adam King from WBNS. Awesome work, podcast.
Right. I think we've latched on to the fourth downs, but do you feel overall, even including Sunday to Friday, that do you feel like you're coaching more aggressively than you have from the last couple of years? I know that might be difficult to answer.
Yeah.
Maybe not fair. I just wonder if you feel that at all.
I think with this team and just in my role, you can target things a little bit better. You can be on things a little bit better. You can, give more thought to, how you're addressing the team, how you're addressing the coaches, the overall approach, focusing on what really matters, which is like how hard you play and your fundamentals and the big picture things. So, whatever it is, but it's also this team. I love this team. I love the way they play, so like every day when I wake up, I put 2 feet in the ground to try to, do everything I can to help this team, reach their dreams and goals. Cause these kids are unbelievable and they're giving everything they possibly have. And we got to keep pushing them as coaches. And that's our job. And, it's their job to take the coaching and continue with the great chemistry we have and great effort. So we got to put a great game plan together, give it to the players and then have a great week of practice. But yeah, I mean, we're all coaching aggressively. Yeah.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
First of all, you make a quarterback going through progression sound like it's the easiest thing in the world, as if it's not like chaos going on back there. But kind of to follow up on some of the blocking stuff you've been asked today, sometimes when people bring up toughness, I think people just dumb it down to just, can you push that guy further than he pushes you? And there's a lot more to that.
Yep.
And when you've been having those conversations over the last couple of years and trying to get that through to your team, how much of it is just simply the execution of a play? Because it seems like whether it's the wide receivers or the offensive linemen or even the tight ends or even what Travion's doing, there's been a bigger focus on executing, and now you're seeing that happen on Saturdays.
Well, it's got to continue. Let me go back to the first thing. I think it's every coach's job to make things that maybe aren't simple. They're not easy, but you got to make them simple as coaches. It's 1 to 2, it's A to B, and it's not always that easy, but like it's simple, and that allows players to play fast and with discernment. So I think whether it's a quarterback or anybody else, like that's really important as coaches. We can't have these guys thinking too much. We got to put them in drills, got to put them in teamwork during the week, and keep it simple for them. And let them play, let them use their athletic ability. But no, I just think the effort's been good so far. We're practicing that way on Tuesdays and Wednesdays in particular, and so it's showing up during the game, and but we got to keep pushing. We got a long way to go this season.
It seems through the first 4 games, you guys have made an emphasis on getting as many guys snaps as possible. You've even said as much. As you move into maybe this middle part of the schedule, how do you balance that, trying to still build depth at them positions, but also whether it's right guard, whether it's linebacker, maybe narrowing some things down and focusing on who your best guys are now that you're in this part of the schedule?
Yeah, we got to win. We got to win this game. This is going to take everything we got to win this game. So we're going to, in this game right here, we're going to put the best players in there to win the game, period. And that's it. I mean, that's the focus right now.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Another question about Iowa's defense. You're right. I mean, I think everyone knows that. You think of Iowa, you think of their defense.
Yep.
Norm Parker, they've done the same thing. They're not getting 4- and 5-star guys generally. It's a developmental program.
Right.
What is it about that defense that makes it so hard? Is it just they make you earn everything?
Yeah, and they know what they're developing, and they're typically veteran players who have played a lot of football before. They're usually not 18, 19, 20. They're usually older guys. They have some young players in there, but they usually have guys that have matured, and they're physically mature and mentally mature and emotionally mature, and they understand the defense. And this is a great example of a defense coordinator who keeps it simple. Not easy, but it's simple. I mean, it's they know how they're going to get attacked, and so they work those things, and so they know what their weaknesses are, they know what their strengths are, they know how to protect certain things, and that's when you have continuity over a certain amount of time with the staff that he has and the way that they do it, and playing complementary football, understanding how you fit in with the offense, defense, special teams. That's what you got.
Can you imagine coaching in your 26th year at one place?
No.
And is it fun for you as a coach, as Nexus Nose guy, to go against a defense like this?
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's going to come down to the players. So we've got to do a good job of keeping it simple and letting them play. That's it. You know, if you start to get into a situation where you're going to out scheme somebody, it's not going to go well against these guys. So we got to keep it simple. We got to let them play. Give them an advantage. In terms of putting them in the situation to be successful. But to say we're going to out scheme Iowa, I think that's not going to happen. You got to play hard.
And final questions, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Thanks, Jerry. Going back to a little bit of what Austin was asking you and a little bit of what Bill Landis, I know they're connected, but number one, do you think you've thrown enough variety out there the first part of the season for when y'all line up in a 4th and 5, the defense really doesn't have a real grip on what you're about to do? And then number two, when you turn a 4th and 5 or whatever it was into a touchdown, does it feel like instead of throwing a punch, you're throwing a haymaker? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think we're always trying to do that. We're trying to make sure that we can't get narrowed in on what we're doing, and then that's by design. But yeah, I mean, there's certain plays in a game, those game-altering plays that you got to make, and we made those plays the other night. That's just the truth. I don't think we always played great the other night, but we made the game-altering plays. We forced 2 fumbles down the red area. The 4th downs we converted on. That goes the other way. It's a different game. That's just the truth, and so. The issues are always there. We got to identify what the issues are and get them addressed and get them fixed and keep growing on those things. But you're right. I mean, those plays are the ones that have to be made in a game. We all know how important some of those are. And they'll swing an entire game. So, I think identifying that is appropriate.
And one of the just to follow, do you guys as a staff? I thought staffs used to go over with officials in pregame somewhere what formations you might throw out there that might catch your eye and don't, and it looks like a couple of times the last couple of weeks, y'all have run kind of the same kind of thing, but the official didn't recognize it. The flag was picked up eventually, but do y'all still do those things?
We do. Yeah. We have after the 100-minute meeting, they come in and we just go over different things, things maybe that, are a little bit different formation wise, so it doesn't catch them off guard and any concerns that we may have.
Thanks, man.
Yep. All right, guys. Yep.
And folks, I think most of you got my text, but we're going to have Coach Kelly followed by Coach Knowles. Going to give Will at least Tuesday off of this week. Mike, you mind doing these two? Since I have you too, Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. On the arena floor at the Covelli Center, we will have our Hall of Famers available for interviews. The individuals going into the Ohio State Athletics Hall of Fame. That's 5 to 6 p.m. Friday at the Covelli Center, and then you're welcome to stay for the event as well. Thanks.
12 minutes, 10 minutes, 6 minutes.
12 good minutes from Coach Kelly. Start over there far left field, Joe Nugent.
Coach, 40 passes against Michigan State, no sacks. I know Travion played a role in the protection, but how close is this offensive line to ultimately where it needs to be after a great performance like that?
Yeah, I think we just grade ourselves weekly, and we hope that there's progress from week 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. They did a really good job. I think pass protection takes all 11. So the receivers have to be open at the appropriate time. Sometimes if the receivers aren't open, the quarterback holds the ball, so then the rush gets home a little bit more. And everybody's like, well, you got to protect. Well, it may be the receivers not getting open in time. So I think all phases were clicking. They had an extensive 3rd down package. I thought our guys handled it really well. And I thought our running backs, both Trey and Q, did a great job in pickup. But we've seen growth from our group up front. And I think having Donnie back for the 2nd game, you got the same 5 guys playing together, I think was a lot of continuity there. So hopefully we'll continue to build upon that.
We'll come over here to Bill Landis, 2nd row. Chip, when you guys, it seemed to me like you ran that play against Marshall when you pulled 3 guys, and you ran the same play against Michigan, but you used a Mecca instead of a 2nd tight end. How do you decide week to week how you're going to layer on change-ups to the run game, how you might just tweak the personnel, even if the play might be similar to something?
I think every decision we make in terms of how we're going to do things is based upon what the defense of that week shows you, because it may have worked against Marshall doing it this way, but it's not going to work against Michigan State doing it the same way. So how do you run plays and make sure that they're successful? So that's what the extensive game planning is during the week, from starting on Sunday through game, what's the best way we can give our guys an opportunity to be successful. So, we spend a lot of time watching film, studying it, and trying to put our guys in positions where they can make plays. So, I think sometimes you get that, well, you ran this play against those guys, how come you don't run it again? Well, because maybe the defense has changed or the personnel has changed. So, but if you can run some similar plays with different personnel, that's always beneficial to you, because I think the core 5 guys up front still have an understanding of what you're doing.
Front row here, Bill, was it?
It's the best defense you've faced so far, maybe the best you'll face all year. It's the Big Ten. What's the challenge? I mean, is it just because they're so fundamentally sound that you know that you've got to be close to perfect yourselves? Or what's the big challenge when you go against them?
Well, Phil's been there for a long time, and I think they really, truly, they teach their system and they develop the players. They do an unbelievable job of developing players. And really, I think it starts in recruiting for them. So they know exactly what all 11 guys' skill sets are and what are required for them to execute the defense that they deploy each week. So I think they do a great job identifying who fits into their scheme, and then continue to develop those guys along the course of their careers there. And I think, they are fundamentally sound. I think they're really, really well coached. It'll be the best coach defense I think that we'll face all season long, and that's the challenge of going against them. And there's probably people have been against them for a long time now, so you can go back 10 years and look at what people have tried to do to them. But I think the test of over time is that they don't give up X plays. They make you earn everything that you get. There's not going to be an easy one. So, it's a challenge that I think you get excited about if you're a real football guy going against somebody like Coach Parker.
And can you assess where Devin is right now? Obviously, he made a touchdown throw to Jeremiah. Where's he in his development right now? How happy are you with where he is?
Devin's done a great job. I think obviously not being the starter is difficult for anybody, but he's been amazing as the backup in terms of what he's like in the room. And he's, as we talk all the time, a chin strap away from going in the game. And he was, we'll get knocked out, got to get another quarterback in the game. He goes in the game and throws a 17-yard touchdown, avoiding a blitz coming off the backside. So really happy where he is right now. He'll continue to grow just like the offensive line is continuing to grow. So I still think it's early for us. We're in game 5, and we'll continue to grow. And because we know it's going to be a long season, and we have to develop our depth at every position, because you never know when their opportunity is going to go into play more than just one snap. Their opportunity is going to go into play a chunk of the game because the starter got knocked out. So really happy where Dev is right now.
Third row middle, Dan Hope.
Chip, just when you evaluate the first month as a whole, how do you feel like Will Howard has performed as a whole?
I think Will's done a nice job. I think he's gotten better from week 1 to week 4. I think he has a better grasp just because he's got live reps. The toughest position to play in football is quarterback, just from a practice standpoint, because they don't get hit in practice. So I think they can get a false sense of security. If you go, no matter where you go in college and professional football, the quarterback doesn't get touched in practice. So the game is so much different for the quarterback than it is for any other position. But I admire Will's toughness. He stands in the pocket. He can see things. Very rarely does he make the same mistake twice. I think he learns from every experience when he's out there. We have really good conversations in between drives when, hey, this happened. If it comes back and that look comes up again, he doesn't do what he did the play before. He moves on to it. So I think he's done a good job protecting the football. We never want to turn it over, but he's been really good from that standpoint so far in the first 4 games. So his completion percentage has gone up in every game. So excited about where he is there. If we continue to complete the ball at a high 60, 70% rate, then I think we're being really successful and efficient in the pass game. He's used his legs a little bit. I think that's one aspect that I think he's good at it, but it just depends on how defense are defending us if he has to do that. So,
First row, awesome.
Will was talking after the game about, there were still some things that we really wanted to get to that we were excited about, and the opportunity didn't present itself. And I know Bill was asking about game plan specific stuff. When you look big picture at your offense and the playbook, how much have we seen? How much more is there at your disposal as this goes forward?
There's always more at the disposal, but I think it's what is applicable in the game that you're playing. I think you have a course of X amount of plays over a season, but then that's cut down for what you're doing that week because you can't practice all those plays during a week. And then even the plays that you practice during the week, you don't get called in a game because that specific situation may have not come up in that game, So, as you go through it, sometimes you find yourself in the red zone more than you thought you were going to be in the red zone. Other times you find yourself you were never in the red zone. You can go 2 or 3 weeks where you don't have the ball inside the 5-yard line, but you got some really good goal line plays, but you never got a chance to call those goal line plays because you scored from 20 yards out as opposed to punching it across the goal line. So each week is different. I think we always over prepare probably more than often than not and say, hey, we got some really good stuff in these situations. But if that situation only comes up once, you only get to call one play. You had 5 that you thought were pretty good, but it only came up once. So those other 4, you kind of put them in the Tupperware and tuck them away and then try to bring them back out again next week. But we spend a lot of time of how many reps do we have at this particular play or this particular scheme. And then maybe 2 weeks from now, you're playing somebody that's similar to who you had 3 weeks earlier and say, hey, let's take some of those things out of the Tupperware that we practiced that week and really didn't get a chance to run. So.
If you guys went for it 4 times on 4th down on Saturday, all worked into the last one, and Ryan talked about wanting to be aggressive and win the game in those spots. What worked in those situations? What did you have the last 4th down going for it? Just everything worked?
Yeah, there's an analytic aspect to it, but I don't think it's always analytics. I think you also have to get the flow of the game and kind of how that's going. So it's a combination of both. What are the percentages if you go for it in terms of success rate? But also you have to factor in what does that do to our team if we don't get it? I think everybody is always, hey, we're all in. Well, you're playing poker and you're all in and you only have a pair of 2s. They may have a better hand than you, and that's where the situation is. It's easy to sit there and say 4th down, you should go for it all the time. Well, that's not necessarily the case. But I also think you always have to think about how is your defense playing at the time, and are we willing to put our defense on the field right now if we don't get the 1st down? So that's part of it. And then we have certain packages based on down and distance that if we get to a 4th and havoc situation, then we're going to dial these plays up. So I think our players are really comfortable because we're calling something that they've practiced and run a lot.
Third row, Rob Allen.
Chip, listening to you talk about Will Howard, doesn't sound like there's much more he can do right. But there's always room for development. What would you like to see him develop?
Complete every pass. That would be one. Jared Goff did it last night, right? I think he went 18 for 18. So, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown went 1 for 1. So they were 19 for 19 as a team. So,
What about? Do you think he locks on receivers a little much? I mean, from the untrained eye, how about his progressions, looking guys off?
I think Will's doing a good job. I think there's always a growth with all of that. Sometimes it may be a newer route that had gone in, and he doesn't have as many reps in the bank as he does with some of the other things that we've run since day one of spring. I think that every quarterback can improve, every coach can improve, every player can improve. I think this is a growth game, and how you develop. And I hope in game 8 we're not playing like we played in game 4. I think it's as you continue to go on and start to add different elements, different things that are happening, different opponents, that's always part of it. But the growth is how do you develop over the course of the season. So I'm pleased with where Will is right now, but that doesn't mean that he's arrived. I don't think you ever arrive in this game. I think every day you got to try to be just a little bit better than you were the day before. And that's what I love about Will, though. That's kind of his mindset is how do I get a little bit better and how do I improve and how do I help this team win?
Is field vision something you can coach and teach and develop, or is it there or it's not?
No.
CJ Stroud had it. Not all guys have it to that level.
Yeah, I don't think all guys have it, but I do think it can be developed. I think for everybody, it's no different than the first time you move into a city. You're going to have to take a map out and try to figure out your GPS, like how do I get from point A to point B? And then after a while, why was I going this way? If I could have gone around, I would have been there a lot quicker. So it's just part of the process that you go through when you're new and it's you're trying to figure your way around and you need a map to look at. But after a while, you kind of figure your lay of the land, and then you're a lot more comfortable in your environment. And the more comfortable Will gets in our offense, I think the more success we're going to have.
Obviously, game plans dictate to some degree where the ball's going to go. When you guys have as many weapons as you do you find yourself as you in the build up to the game? Okay, well, this guy maybe hasn't had as many touches. Can you even do that in this offense where you're trying to get guys more involved at times?
I mean, I think at times theoretically you can do that, but you also have to factor in what is the defense's decision on how they decided to defend you. We're not, people can say we're not going to let you run the ball. Well, then we have to throw the ball. So, okay, we're equal opportunities. It doesn't matter if you run the ball across the goal line or throw the ball across the goal line. It still counts as 6 points. So, we're not caught up in it. It has to be totally balanced and 50-50 run pass or whatever it is. It really is. It's indicative of what they're doing. And if we can kind of figure out what they're doing and get a really good beat of what they're trying to take away, then you are. And there's sometimes you plan things going into a game and saying, hey, if I was defending us, this is how I would do it. And then when you get into a game, they're like, they're not doing that. All right. Well, then we need to take advantage of that. You know what I mean? So we talk about it and we want to be balanced. And I think we're pretty good at distributing the ball through. But there are some games where the tight ends may catch the ball more than the running backs catch the ball. That's just the nature of how the game kind of expressed itself. But we have specific plays where we think we're trying to get the ball to them, but we're never going to force it. If they're going to double cover a guy, then they double cover the guy. If they've double covered him, then someone's singled. And that's the beauty of having as many weapons as we have, is if you're going to double one guy, then that means somebody else isn't. You can't double them all. If they did, it's a penalty because they got too many guys on the field. So, but when you have as many weapons as we have, I think that's always a bonus and that's always a benefit.
Come over here to Adam K.
That 4 games as the offensive coordinator up in the box, kind of meshing with Brian. How has that gone for you, and how do you think you've settled in here?
It's been smooth. I think our guys have an understanding, in terms of, because we spend so much time together during the weeks of, how it's going to flow. And I don't think there's anything that has gone on in a game that's been a surprise. Like, hey, what was that? Like, why did we do that? There's a constant dialogue going on. But when we're in a third and short situation, we only have 4 or 5 options on third and short. You're not making plays up at the time. They're what you practice, what you've gone over, because you're going to call something that your players have a lot of confidence in running, because their confidence is based on their demonstrated ability of doing it in our training sessions. So I think it's been smooth. We haven't really faced a ton of adversity on the offensive side of the ball. So I think that's really when, it'll show. But I'm confident that our communication systems and our protocols that we use right now are solid.
Was there anything that you liked a little better as an offensive coordinator, maybe, than as a head coach?
I missed the first part.
Was there anything you'd liked better being an offensive coordinator that surprised you as opposed to being a head coach?
You can go to the bathroom between series if you have to. It's about the only difference, I think. It's always kind of tough. Coach Coop can tell you that on the sideline. It's really difficult to say, hey, I'm going to leave. You know what I mean? But there's a bathroom upstairs by the booth, so if need be.
Jim, obviously you have a lot of players that are big weapons, as Pat was talking about. Is there a worry or a risk sometimes of getting too far over the skis, being aggressive, knowing that you have almost like get out of jail free cards like Jeremiah Smith out there that you can just throw it up to? Or, Ryan was talking about trying to out scheme against a guy like Phil Parker, and you're saying, you enjoy that challenge. But is it sometimes hard to dial it back when you have guys that are that explosive?
Yeah, because we're not trying to out scheme anybody. We're trying to put our players in positions where they can make plays. I mean, anybody can draw a play up and say, you should do this, you should do that. Then my question is, well, how many reps do you have at running it? And do we feel really good because we've seen the 4 or 5 different ways they can defend that. So we're not trying to, and you're not going to out scheme Phil Parker. That's just, I think maybe people think a little bit too much into that part, is that these people already had that people's number. This game has always been about the players and always will be about the players. So, who can really show up in those matchups. And that's what this game's about. This is as good a defense as we talked about as we faced, but there's going to be a lot of one-on-one battles. We have to win against their interior defensive linemen are outstanding. So that matchup with our center and guard against the 2 interior defensive linemen and the All-American linebacker are a huge matchup. And that comes down to just fundamental football. Do we block better than they get off of blocks? Can we give the quarterback enough time for our receivers to run the proper depth of their routes to get the ball thrown? Is the quarterback throwing the ball on time, or is he holding the ball too long? It's all of that. So, but we don't sit in there and dream up because you have a Jeremiah or you have a Mac or you have a Q or a Trey that we should do this, this, and this. I think we're always trying to accentuate their strengths and play to it. But you have to look at all 11 when you're making those decisions because, hey, let's just throw it to him. Well, then how long are we going to protect for? You know, if Jeremiah is going to run a 60-yard route, you know, I learned a long time ago, every inch on a piece of paper is a second of protection. So can we protect for that long? Can we hold up? And now what are we going to do for that? Are we going to keep 8 guys in protection? You know, I think there's a lot that goes into it, but I think the ability to have weapons at all spots makes the defense have to defend all those spots. So we're not trying to specifically go to one or another. I think we're just trying to see how they deploy versus these formations and what their tendencies are. And then what are our best chances? And then we got to go play and then we got to go execute because the scheming's done once the ball snap. You know, it's do our guys hold up longer in protection and do our receivers get to the right depths? And does the quarterback deliver the ball on time to a location where the defender can't get his hands on it?
Last set of questions tonight. Yeah, just following up on that. So does it, when you go against a Parker, does it feel like a chess match where the pieces can move, you know, independently type thing? And then what is the tell that you've gotten into a defensive coordinator's head, for want of another term, as a game goes on?
It is a chess match where the pieces are moving. So what happened on play 1 may not be the same thing that happened on play 5. You know, it could be different because he could make a different call. And I don't think any coordinator on either side of the ball ever thinks about, am I getting in this person's head? You know, we're really microscopic in terms of our vision on what's the next play and what's the situation. It's 2nd and 9. It's on the left hash. You know, what are our calls on 2nd and 9 on the left hash on the plus 30-yard line? That's really where you are. You're not thinking about, am I in his head, not in his head? If you're thinking that, then he's in your head. And I don't have enough space for anybody else in my head. So I'm just going to concentrate on what the next down is, to be honest with you.
Can I ask one quick follow?
This is awesome.
Just quick follow.
Quick follow.
Well, everybody's asking follows.
You set the tone, though.
Yeah. When a play actually starts, what are you watching?
When the play starts?
When the play starts, are you watching how the defense is reacting? Because you know what you're trying to do offensively.
Mhm.
Just as a coordinator, what are you watching?
We have really specific, what we call eyes. So everybody has a specific spot on the field, you know, so the offensive line coach may have the offensive line to his sideline, but then the graduate assistant who's in the box is looking at the offensive line to away from the sideline. You know, it's the same thing with the secondary rotation, things like that. So with as many people as we have, there's a lot to that. For me, I understand kind of what the trigger point of the play is. And if something occurred that was out of whack, you know, then I know who to ask right away. So I can ask Billy, what'd the backside safety do? Well, he didn't drop to the backside half. He actually fit into the front. You know, we thought that we had a play where it was going to be too deep on the backside, and it wasn't too deep on the backside. So, you know, sometimes you get a bigger picture because of where you are, and you can see the all 22. But you have an understanding when the ball snapped of what the play should look like. And when there's a breakdown, you know, how quickly can you get the information of what the breakdown was and why was there a breakdown? Was it because the defense deployed differently than we thought they were going to? Or did we lose in one of the matchups that we had? You know, the left tackle missed on a 5 technique, you know, and so a guy came in clean because, hey, the quarterback could hit quick. I didn't look like there was a blitz. It wasn't a blitz. We missed a block. You know, sometimes that happens.
All right, Coach, thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, what's up, man?
No, I was told it. Yeah. Like it went. You were in the background of your house.
Yeah. I used your dog. Well, the email
Just the entire.
A little loose with the one question, aren't they? Getting a little loose with the one question. One question's becoming two, it's gonna get to everybody, so.
Yeah, it's.
I know.
I was on that.
I know you don't.
So I could submit this video and say.
All right, guys, we got about 12 minutes with Coach Knowles. We'll start here on the aisle, Dylan Davis.
Jim, is Sonny settling in at linebacker the way you thought he would, or at the rate you thought he would?
Yeah, I mean, very pleased with Sonny. You know, I think he's being put into a lot of different situations. Playing Sam, playing Will, he's played Mike. All of those positions have their nuances to them, you know. And I know this, that sometimes when you see him or any of our players not, you know, being off on a play or looking like they're out of position, I mean, that to me goes back to me and training and coaching, right? I mean, there are so many details to these things that anytime a play goes wrong, and our players know this, I tell them, you know, all your bad plays are on me. All your good plays are on you. So when I look at a play, you know, I say, okay, he should have done this. But then I have to look at myself and you have to say, how many times was he in practice put into that position versus that play? I mean, that's how, you know, that's how you have to be accountable, I believe, as a coach, because we have really good players and really good kids, and Sonny is one of them. Meaning, you know, like they're good and they listen. So when you have that combination, then it goes back to coaching. So I would say that, you know, Sonny in particular, one of those guys, I mean, he's employing a myriad of different techniques, you know, playing kind of all three of those positions. And there's a lot of nuance to it. And we just got to, you know, we got to keep doing a better job coaching all the details.
So third row over here, Andy Hitters.
Yeah, sticking with Sonny, you know, you had safeties transitional linebacker in the past, Malcolm Rodriguez. In your experience, how long does it take for someone to nail down those nuances, like you said, and how long did it take with Malcolm?
Yeah. You know, Malcolm, who had a sack last night, I think, didn't he? I didn't see it. I was watching video, but somebody texted me about it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a good question, but yeah, I mean, Malcolm, I think was, you know, he was on the top of his game in year 3. You know, I think Sonny and Malcolm are a little different. You can look at them and see that, but you know, so, and plus at Ohio State, we don't have time for year 3, you know, so Sonny's in an accelerated program. That's all I can say, you know, and it's just going to keep getting better.
Yeah, Jim, what differences do you maybe notice between the Iowa offense that you saw in 22 and this Iowa offense, and just what kind of challenges does Caleb Johnson pose, especially?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're just doing a great job of creating seams for him, and he's fantastic back, you know, downhill break tackle. So, you know, I just see, you know, that they're creating formations and ways to make it hard on the defense to maintain your proper position. And then, you know, they get guys out of whack formationally, and then he's able to crease it.
We'll go right down here in the aisle, Bill Landis.
Jim, when you guys decide to play 3 linebackers, is it automatic there at 12 personnel, we're playing 3 linebackers? Is there more nuance to it? And then how, I guess, what are the conversations like when you decide to pull a guy like Jordan Hancock off the field? Because he just seems like he's one of your better players and really integral to what you guys do. So I'd imagine it's not easy to always pull them off as effective.
No, yeah, it's not easy, but you're right. It really is personnel based, and trying to get the people in there who, particularly in the run game. And it's not that Jordan can't handle it, because he can. He does a really good job in the run game, and I've spent times in my career where we stayed in nickel and 12, because those were our dudes. But we got other guys, so we're just trying to get the best matchups.
Go center field over here, Patrick Murphy.
Jim, obviously you want to come out, have the perfect plan against an offense, right? But that doesn't always happen. The last 2 weeks, you guys have obviously made defensive adjustments at halftime that have worked. How much do you balance what you see on film and then knowing you're going to have to make those adjustments with evaluating what you see in the first half versus the second?
They're like two completely different processes. They really are. I mean, the craziest thing about our profession is you can work on things all week and then show up in the game and they're not there. You're like, what the hell? So, but that's our job, is to try to create practice that mimics the game, So that's where you really spend all your time. It's like success through scripting of, okay, what plays am I going to see against what defense? You're trying to predict what they're going to do. And then you see what actually happens. And then maybe something that you thought was going to work didn't work, so you got to move on. You got to move on and you got to adjust, but they're completely different processes, both of them.
Go front row center, Bill Rabinowitz.
Last week I asked you after 14 points to Marshall if you were a little frustrated. You said, yeah. Michigan State only gave up 7, and that came right after a turnover. You shut them down almost completely in the second half. But the first half, they moved the ball pretty consistently. What was your level of frustration then, and what do you think was the issue in the first half of them moving the ball?
Yeah, we started slow, the past couple weeks, and I blame myself for that. Right? Again, it's making there are thousands of permutations of what can happen, right? So that's exactly like I said. It's like, hey, I'm predicting this. They did that. Okay. Well, that guy's supposed to know that. That's part of his job. But then you go back to, well, how many times did I really practice that? How many times did I show that guy that technique versus that play or that route? So the preciseness and the exactness of the preparation, I think it happens a lot to coaches. It happens throughout my career, that like in the beginning of the game, you get some unpredictable things, which may not even publicly, you may not notice, but, kind of what you were predicting and how you did it. And then, your guys always go back. You always default to your training, so you have to look at those plays where we failed on those plays and say, why? And when it comes to the game, that comes to me. It's just continuing to be exact about how we're training, what we're training, what I'm showing, how predictable are we? If they know what you're in, they can take advantage of it.
Go deep left field, Tim Hall.
Jim, Lathan Ransom has become a weapon with the way he can utilize the peanut punch. Now, not all DBs can do that. Is that something that you tell certain players to try to do, or do they just have to pick that up themselves?
Yeah, we love all of them to do it. I think you saw, 2 big plays last week that we've spent on the positive side, that we've spent a whole spring and a fall camp training for those 2 plays, right? The one that Jordan ripped out and Lathan with the stealth punch. I mean, those are deliberate. Those do not happen accidentally. Those are deliberate. I think just like you said, we try to train everybody, but some guys are just better than others, and Lathan Ransom is lethal with that. And I want him to keep it up.
the aisle here, Spencer Holbrook.
Jim, one of the advanced stat sites says you guys lead the country in pressures and non-blitzes. Are you satisfied with how you guys are getting to the quarterback and affecting the quarterback right now?
Never satisfied, but we are, they are executing what's called though. Yeah. I think, we got to tighten up our coverage, because we need that extra second because the guys are getting there,
Third row right here, Rob Oliver.
Jim, you lead the nation 6.75 points allowed. And yet you hear.
There's two guys who said something about leading the nation.
Right.
Both you guys get it.
Well, that's the point. And yet you.
It's rat poison. It's rat poison.
And yet you are hearing what's wrong with this defense. Have you ever had a defense?
Who's I'm hearing what? What's wrong with it?
Well, you're even saying like we could be better here.
Oh, yeah. Well, we could.
Have you ever been nitpicked as much as you've been here, your defense? Is that to be expected in a place like this?
My father was pretty tough. He was a Philly cop, so I got more than nitpicked. I got nit-whacked. Yeah, so I'm used to it.
What would it take to be satisfied? You said not satisfied.
0 points, under 100 yards a game, 4 turnovers, score twice on defense, and then be fine. Then I'd be satisfied.
We'll hold you to it.
Okay.
Just behind Rob, Cameron, Steve Robinson.
Jim, what did you like about the 3 linebackers the set that you put out early against Michigan State, and how do you want to see that grow or evolve, especially this weekend against this one?
Yeah, I like the fact, that they all can work together. When you have maybe 2 guys and a nickel, you're kind of in 2 different rooms. With the 3 linebackers, they're all in the same room and they can work together. And I think their understanding and processing is going very well. What we need to see better is tackling. Our linebackers need to continue to become better tacklers, and particularly this week, knockback tacklers, right? I mean, these guys are the kings of, in this running back, turning a 2-yard gain into a 4 or 5 yard gain, which then leads to 2nd and 5, which leads to 3rd and 2, so we need to continue to work on our tackling and, with an attitude of knocking people back.
Second row right here, Steve.
Kind of a 2-part here, a lot of it, because we've just heard a lot about coverage. For starters, could you evaluate your linebackers and how they've been in coverage so far? And then also, I think there's been a growing concern of how much off coverage you guys have been playing with the cornerbacks and trying to balance, giving up some of that short stuff and just having guys who can excel at tackling versus maybe being more aggressive,
right,
and having your corners play up in the line of scrimmage.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's, the corners off press. I mean, that's a constant thought, constant adjustment. Again, we've been solid on explosive plays. So I think you can't forget that, because that wins games, and sometimes on those big, deep, like you take a guy like Caleb Downs, who, we activated Saturday, and, we're going to continue to activate him as we get into big time, Big Ten competition. You see what he looks like when he's activated. What you don't see a lot is when he's not activated, how many times they just don't throw the ball deep. You know what I mean? Because he's in the right place and on top of the routes, and they don't even take those shots. Those shots aren't taken. So it's the same thing with the corners. It's like, the answer to your question is, do we need to be pressed more? Yes, we do. And we need to keep working that in, but we got to balance it.
Deep center, got time for 2 more. Deep center, Jeremy.
Jim, Ryan and Chip sort of have a luxury that Phil Parker and the defense at Iowa haven't changed in 20-some years. They have a first time or a new offensive coordinator after a couple of years of being somewhat predictable offensively, and they're coming off a bye week. How does that impact what preparation you do, and how, generally speaking, how does the off week help a team prepare?
Yeah, it just gives you more time to study. You know, I mean, that's the only way I can put it. It gives you more time to study. But in terms of what we do, you know, you have to go off of what you have seen from them this year. And then you're always with a new offense coordinator. You got to go back in their history and you got to look at things that they've done in the past that maybe you haven't seen yet because you're ready. So you're ready for it. But you really got to go mostly off of what you see this year.
We'll wrap it up right here in the front, Austin.
Jim, the play that Cody made on 4th down, is that predetermined that he's going high, jumping? Is there a read that he has there
It's a call. It's a call. Yeah.
Is that something you've been talking about, the number of reps that guys get in those situations? Is that
You can't rep that. No, that's like when I call this, you guys do that and you jump over the top. You're not gonna practice that. You're right. I don't know how you practice that. Cody, go up and practice and smash your head into Lincoln. You know, you're not gonna do that. So
Thanks, Coach.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jim.